Hey there, history buffs! Ever wondered what it would be like to live in the Dark Ages? Imagine where modern conveniences are non-existent and life is a daily struggle for survival. Well, let me tell you, you probably wouldn't last 24 hours. Here's why. The Dark Ages and peril, far removed from the comforts we take for granted today. First up, diseases and lack of hygiene. The streets were filthy, and the concept of sanitation was virtually non-existent. Forget sanitizer. Back in the Dark Ages, they had scarce clean water, no sewage systems, and little understanding of hygiene. People often drank contaminated water, leading to widespread illness. Deadly diseases were everywhere. These diseases spread rapidly, decimating populations and leaving communities in despair. Without vaccines or antibiotics, even a minor infection could turn deadly. Now let's talk. The of medical knowledge meant that even the simplest ailments could become fatal. The variety we enjoy today, the abundance of fresh produce, meats, and dairy products that fill our grocery stores. Yeah. People had to make do with whatever they could grow or trade for, often resulting in monotonous and nutritionally poor diets. Folks mainly survived on bread, grains, and some salt. Fresh fruits and vegetables were rare, and meals were often bland and repetitive. Famine and malnutrition were super common, weakening immune systems and making people even more vulnerable to diseases. And that many lived on the brink of starvation. Violence and social inequality were off the charts. The social hierarchy was rigid, and the lower classes suffered immensely. Peasants faced heavy taxes. They worked tirelessly for their lords, with little to show for their labor. Meanwhile, knights and nobles were constantly at war. The frequent conflicts drained resources and brought further suffering to the common. Enforcement meant crime, pillaging, and even slavery were widespread. Bandits roamed the countryside, and safety was never guaranteed. It was a harsh world where the strong thrived and the weak. Survival of the fittest was the rule of the land. Speaking of harsh, let's discuss labor conditions. The work was backbreaking and there was no such thing as a day off. Surviving meant grueling hours of farming and demands were relentless, and injuries were common. A lifestyle dependent on brute strength and endurance would be a major challenge for us modern folks, used to comfy chairs and desk jobs. The contrast between then and now is stark. And finally, the cherry on top, superstition and scientific ignorance. Science. Rational thought was often overshadowed by fear and myth. Diseases were blamed on evil spirits, and women were accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. The lack of scientific understanding led to anyone with modern knowledge could be persecuted for their beliefs. Intellectuals and those who questioned the status quo were often targets of suspicion and violence. So, in short, if you're used to the comforts of the modern world, clean water, good food, healthcare, and a bit of logic, the Dark Ages would be a living nightmare. The stark differences highlight just how far we've come. Surviving would be nearly impossible. The Dark Ages would overwhelm even the most resilient modern individual. Well, that's all for today's historical horror show. We hope this journey back in time has given you a new appreciation for the modern world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this trip back in time. Your support helps us bring more fascinating content to you. Catch you next time.